Are we all good? How's chat? How's everyone doing? Just silence. Just silence. That's fair, though. You can't hear anything. Is that a me thing? Or is that a people thing? It's gonna be both. We're gonna go through paper 1 and then paper 2. And I will yap a little bit about literature stuff as well if you're a lit student and not a LangLit student. I know this says LangLit, but I will yap a little bit about lit stuff as well. Okay, so you can hear me. How's everyone doing? Before I get started, how's everyone feeling about English in particular? Yeah, bro. Summaries for both at the end. Yeah, I'll just send the slides. And I'm recording, so I'll send that as well. But yeah. Real? That's so real. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to delete your message, whoever said anything else. Please do not mention the website where you get things on this server. It's against our rules. Thanks. Staring at Coalbank. Fair enough. More worried for chem, but English is 70% reading? What's RNG? Anyway, 30% writing skill. Oh, luck. Right, okay. What does RNG mean? What do you mean like luck? What is RNG? I feel like, oh, okay. I feel like a child, like, I feel, not a child, I feel like a boomer right now. Stop. We're not calling me Unk. It's not happening. Yes, you can retake exams. If you want. If you so choose to. Okay. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing okay. I hope English isn't too much of a... I mean, English usually people put off because there's other more important things. Is consistently doing past papers for paper 2 good? Not really. Like, it depends, right? Because you can do as many as you want, but if you're not getting feedback on it and you don't know what you're doing well or not doing well, then you're not improving. Like, you can do as many as you want, but unless you have someone giving you feedback or, like, yeah. I would more so say that you should, instead of writing full essays, just make essay plans for every like question that you come across with your works, so you can see what, like, how your brain is organizing the information. Is using AI against the rules? Yes. Yeah, you can't use it on the day anyway. I mean, you can use it for feedback. I've definitely used it before for feedback. So you can input your essay in and then you get it to give you feedback according to the rubric. That can kind of help. I mean, use it as a tool and not as your source of information. It's fine. Okay, So I'm gonna get started with paper one stuff first. If you guys have questions, do like ping me so I can see them, because I'm not gonna see them. But yeah, so this is what we're gonna go through. We're gonna go through some general reminders. Obviously, you're probably gonna know all of those already since you're in exam season, but I'm gonna go through them anyway. We're gonna talk about outlining. We're gonna talk a little bit about text types. It's not gonna be comprehensive. I do have slides for it if people want it at the end, but I'm not gonna go through it today. We're gonna talk about how to spot devices in text. We're gonna look at some exemplars, and then I'm gonna leave more time for questions. Again, obviously, if you still need questions, you can ask me. Yeah. So, duration. So obviously, HL students get 2 hours and 15 minutes to write paper ones for both the texts. SL students will only get an hour and 15 to do one. HL have it worse here because you have 15 minutes less, but that's fine. Both SL and HL will get 5 minutes at the beginning of the exam to read your text without writing anything. Here are some reminders. First, paper one has only non-literary text. This is for LangLit, by the way. This does not apply to lit. This is a LangLit specific point that paper one only has non-literary text. So you're not analyzing Persepolis 1984 or like anything literary, not a poem, not anything like that. For LangLit students, it's just like language texts. So it's obviously if you're doing English literature, it's only going to be literary text. This is for LangLit. For LangLit, you only have non-lit text. So you have ads or PSAs or articles or speeches. Articles and speeches technically count as non-literary because they're not a poem, a drama, prose. So it doesn't count within the literary genre. But yes, you can get articles, you can get speeches, advertising, infographics. IB loves infographics nowadays. Like PSAs, comics. Yeah, it's a mixed bag. Another thing to remember is the Peel structure, which is essentially point, example, explanation, and link. So you for paragraphs, do lit students get comics? No, I don't think. Oh, you do. Never mind. Oh, you do. No, you do. You don't get cartoon strips. You get like excerpts from graphic novels or things like that. Yeah, you can get song lyrics, but song lyrics are very similar to poems and they're not very common. It's more common for it to be like drama, poem, or prose. Yeah, song lyrics, honestly, I would just go down the poem route. Like it's very, very similar. There are a few other things to consider, but it's like even if you don't know the conventions of song lyrics, you can analyze it as if it's a poem and you'll do pretty good. Yeah, so for Peel, again, it's essentially just a good way to organize your paragraphs. It's a good way to make sure you're tackling everything that needs to be tackled. So it's point, example, explanation, link. In this case, example would be something lifted from the text itself. Specific devices aren't necessary to memorize, so you don't always have to remember whether something is specifically anaphora, anadiplosis, or like alliteration. If you just say repetition, that also works. Like you don't have to go into the very, very specifics as if you can't remember it in the exam. You don't want to panic just because you don't know it. Like if you say repetition, you're still identifying things. And then the last thing on this slide is make sure to provide adequate evidence for any point. This is really, 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 really important. Like really important. So like when you're making any point whatsoever, you want to make sure that you're including evidence from the text itself. So if you, for example, say that if it's an infographic and there are a lot of like button-like shapes. Then you want to say at the bottom of this infographic there are several buttons. This gamifies the concept and then does this blah 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 blah. You want to include the things in the, like, you want to include specific things from the text into your essay. So paper one text combinations are usually one more textual and one more visual, in my opinion. That's what I've always seen. Like, I think, for example, the last few years I've always seen it's like one article and one infographic. Those are probably the most common. Otherwise, I think in terms of textual, there's blogs and podcast transcripts and a bunch of other stuff. And in terms of visual, there's advertising. Comic strips are very common as well. Yeah. Okay. So, another thing. It's okay to not 100% follow the guiding question. This is a point of contention because a lot of people, like a lot of teachers, will tell you to always follow the guiding question, which isn't bad advice, because the guiding question really, really, like, just helps you condense what you want to talk about. However, it is possible for you to talk about a whole other point in the paper. Like, you can create your own guiding question. That is allowed. I just wouldn't recommend it because you're less likely to be able to focus on, like, you're less like, it's either your analysis is going to be way too narrow or it's going to be way too broad. The idea of a guiding question that's already been given is that it perfectly creates a tunnel for you to follow, but it's not too narrow that it gives you a chance to talk about wider interpretations and things. So I would recommend that you follow the guiding question, but again, so the entire point is to either analyze the text that's been given with the guiding question or with a guiding question of your own. But I personally would recommend that you use the guiding question just because it's a lot easier than trying to come up with your guiding question on your own. Yes, I'm combining LangLit and Lit, but I will say when things are specifically for LangLit and specifically for Lit. I can't do 2 sessions, guys. I'm really busy at the moment. That's why. Yeah, okay. So explain how the device helps fulfill the purpose. So, like I said before, you want to give evidence, but after you give evidence, you also want to explain how that specific thing helps the driving purpose of the text. So in the beginning, you want to say, the purpose of this text is blank. And then every single point you make, you want to say how it links back to that purpose. So if it's an advertisement, the purpose of that text is to sell a product. Now, if you say things like, yeah, there's gamification in here, blah, 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 and then don't say that gamification is a valid marketing tactic and therefore can allow, it will help fulfill the purpose. Until you say that, it's like your analysis stays lacking. You want to say how it helps the purpose, not just that it is something. You just don't want to identify and leave it at that. Obviously, a very simple one and a very common one: keep your writing as legible as possible. Examiners can't mark your paper if they can't read your handwriting. You want to try and keep it as neat as possible. And then another simple one: make sure your grammar and spelling is correct. That is very, very simple to do, and just make sure that you're proofreading as you go along, and getting the grammar and spellings right, because you don't want to. They don't usually deduct for spellings, and grammar, but I think generally speaking, it leaves a bad impression on the examiner, and you don't want that to be like the reason why they weren't in a good mood while reading your thing. It does influence language, yes. Yeah, it does. Like, it wouldn't, again, if you have like a couple spelling mistakes, they don't really like, it's fine. That's not end all be all, but you want to keep a good like impression, so you want to just do it right. Yeah, so you don't want the first impression to be bad as well. Just don't, like, every other word cannot have a spelling mistake. That's what I mean. Okay, so is there any other questions there first before I go into outlining? Questions? Yes, ask, and I shall respond. Yeah. So the thesis statement is supposed to, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later as well. The thesis statement is supposed to outline like what you're talking about throughout. So you do want to mention the theme within your thesis statement, but you also want to mention like what specifically you're going to tackle. So what's a good thesis statement example? Let me pull up one of my old ones and give you an example of what a good thesis statement looks like. Guys, I finally scanned all my like paper ones and paper twos when I went home this summer, and now I have exemplars to give you after the session, which is good. So my thesis statement in one of my things were: the advertisements for this project effectively use layout, fonts, and visuals to persuade the audience to participate and support the project. That's a very simple version of a thesis. But that is like, so those are the three things I knew I was going to talk about. And I was going to talk about in more detail. So I was going to talk about specific techniques within that large technique. So like I said, in this, I said, what did I say? I said layout, fonts, and visuals. Now, layouts, fonts, and visuals are very, very like overarching categories, but then you can like talk about more specific things within your essay. And I got a 19 for this essay, so like it is possible, like, you know. Okay, so we're gonna talk about outlining, because I love talking about outlining. Not that, okay, I'm gonna say something. I talk a lot about outlining, but the number of times I did outline is not a lot because sometimes you just forget. Like, you're really like in the stress of things and you don't remember that you have to outline, which is also fine. But I just like to emphasize this because if you do outline, it can help you. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. That's fine too. But it's just something that everyone does recommend, and I would recommend as well. So you have 5 minutes of reading time when you get your text. Even after this time has elapsed, you can still use 5 to 10 minutes to read. If you're a slow reader, don't be panicked. about the fact that you have to read within 5 minutes. That's not really a requirement. You can read for as long or as short as you'd like. But the main idea there is that, like, while you have time to read, obviously, if you're HL, part of it is you have to read to text. And I would personally recommend that when you are reading, you pick which one you want to do first, because you don't have to go in order. You can either do the one you're more comfortable with, or you can do the one that you are less comfortable with. And that depends on how you want to manage your time. So either, like, if you're less comfortable with it, you're likely to take more time to do the essay itself. So you can either be like, okay, let me do this one first, and then whatever time I have left, I can do the one I know well. Or you can do the other approach, which is, let me do the one I know really well first, because I think I will get it done a little bit quicker, and I think it'll be my better work, and that will score me more points. And that's fine too. It's honestly up to you how you want to organize your time. That's like a non-issue, but the main thing I want to emphasize is, like, don't panic if your reading time has ended and people just start writing, because sure, they can do that, but if that's not okay for you, that's not okay for you, and that's fine too. What was I gonna say? And then, so I would recommend, for the 5 minutes of reading time that you do get, you, like, read through it and try and identify the different techniques as you read. So, like, in your head, pretend as if you're annotating, because you're not allowed to obviously use your pen, but pretend that you're annotating it, and then you mark it out in your head. And then once the 5 minutes has elapsed, you write that all down as soon as possible. So any devices that you found, any like emotions that it generates, anything like that. You can write on the text, but you can't write during your reading time, is what I meant. You can write on the text. It's just, like, you can't write during your reading time. So I would recommend during your reading time, you still, like, annotate mentally, and then do it physically after your 5 minutes has passed, so that you do it quicker rather than doing it right after the, like, writing time starts. Now, so this is the difference between annotating and outlining, right? So annotating is things that you see on the text itself. So you see what devices are being used, you mark out quotes that you think can be useful for using, you look at the global issues that are mentioned, key events, features of the text, etc., and, like, specific conventions and devices. Outlining, when you do, outlining, you want to look at text type, purpose, audience, context, quotes from the text, and then analysis. So you want to put down points of actual analysis. Instead of just writing down all the devices that you see, you actually want to look through your analysis and, like, what points you want to make as you go along. Now, I know people say that they feel like outlines don't work for them, which is completely fine. If you feel like you do a lot better just, like, going straight into it and writing an essay, that's fine too. But also, something to consider is that your outline doesn't have to be too detailed either. You can do something as simple as like, make a thesis statement and then just organize your paragraphs. So be like, paragraph 1, I'm going to talk about this and this. Paragraph 2, I'm going to talk about this and this. Paragraph 3, I'm going to talk about this and this. That's fine too. Like, it doesn't have to have every single point you're going to make, and that will hopefully help shorten the amount of time it takes for outlining. Like, if you feel like you're taking too much time outlining, again, just shorten the outline. Is there, what else? Yeah, so this is an example outline. This is not mine, this is someone else's, but basically it's from an article of why plastic is harmful. So this is how they've done it. So that's their point that they want to make. That's where the evidence is. That's the explanation. And then that's the importance. This is a good outlining way if you don't know how to structure your paragraphs while you're in the moment. But I would recommend that. I mean, it does work. Introductions. So this is again not how I would write an introduction. This is how one of our old revision hosts would write their introduction, but I think it's a really good introduction. I can show you an example of an introduction that I've done that apparently my teacher really liked. Let me find it. Okay. If you can read my handwriting, I don't know if you can, but just, okay. There you go. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to read through that, and then you can let me know what you think. And you can also talk about what youth would do differently. I want to know, like, what you think that you could do better or worse. Ooh, but that's a paper 2 intro. Paper 2 intros I really enjoyed doing. But that's because I could play that off of my head. Like, that's just pure, like, imagination from my head. But paper 1 intros are a lot more difficult because you're constricted. I also did the Crucible. The topic, we're talking about paper 1 and paper 2 in English. LangLit. Yeah, I did the Crucible as well. And I did Doubt, which is a play by, I've forgotten his name, John Shanley or something. Yeah. We were gonna do the Memory Police, but we didn't do that. Yeah, sure. I did Crucible. We were about to do Memory Police and then it got cancelled. So we didn't end up doing that. But yeah, anyway. So that's I think a good enough example of a intro. Well, my example of an intro. This is also a good example of an intro. This is like a more basic intro. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be complicated. For body paragraphs, you want to go through the peel structure. So I talked about the peel structure before as well, but yeah. Is name dropping global issues in paper 1 super important? No, it's not super important. But if you do it, it does help a little bit. But the thing is, it has to be in, like, you have to make a point with it. You can't just drop it into the essay and just be like, yep, there. Like, you have to, it has to augment your argument or your point that you're trying to make. It can't just be you're just saying it for the sake of saying it. Because the examiners can tell if you're saying it just for saying it. Yeah, the Crucible quotes are so good. Like, I still remember some of the quotes. The pointy reckoning quote, yeah, other things. Pointy reckoning is said by, what's her name? Abigail to the children when they're like scared it's in Act 2 or something. We emphasize that quite a bit because it shows the true character of Abigail. Like, she seems like this innocent girl, but she's willing to go to any lengths to keep her ruse up. Sorry, this is just me going into the Crucible analysis now. Coven is crazy, but when she's threatening, no, but in, like, earlier, when, you know, when the, like, what's the little girl's name, when she doesn't wake up and then later all the adults leave and then she threatens them to not say anything and keep up the ruse. Yeah. So she says something along the lines of, "I'll show you a pointy reckoning in the dead of night if you do something, something, something." Like that shows her true character in the grand scheme of things. Like before that, you think she's like just some like love struck girl, and then after that, you're like, oh, she's insane. Scrolls out to your go back. Yeah. Anyway, I think everyone does know what peel means. Does anyone need me to explain what peel means? Yes? No? Are we good with peel? I can go move forward. Yeah. I'm gonna give it 2 seconds so people can. Okay, good. So, conclusion. Yeah, this is a good example of a conclusion, but they should be fairly short and concise, but you don't just want to restate your like just don't rewrite your introduction. That's the main thing. You do want to restate the thesis, but you want to add something to it. So, like, as seen through blah 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 blah, the people do this, that, yeah. I think conclusions in general are a little bit tricky because you have to like toe the line between not introducing anything new, but also not just restating your like thesis. Sorry, your introduction is what I mean. So this is an example conclusion that's on the screen, but I'm also gonna send an example conclusion if this loads. Yes, ask away. I am willing to answer. Yeah. That's an example conclusion for the introduction that I sent earlier. I'll send this example paper later on as well. This is I think the best paper one I've done. I got a 19 for it, which is really good. But yeah. I mean, how long are they? Not very long, like 3 sentences, 4 sentences probably. Like you can look at mine. I got a 19 for this essay and it's like what? Like 3 sentences total. Like it doesn't have to be too long-winded, because you shouldn't be making any new points in your conclusion. You want to make all your points in your body, and then your conclusion is just you're emphasizing what you've brought in. Thanks. I don't get that a lot, but thanks. Derive a new level extended idea of something from our analysis, but you're just I mean, like, I don't think you should make a new point. I think you can augment on what you've already said. So for example, if I take the example of the conclusion that I've written here, I've said, so my first sentence is just a restatement of the thesis. The layout, fonts, along with the visuals, allow the creators of this ad to promote their project and signify the ease through which a member of their audience can join the project. The genre of advertisements is interesting for this, as it does not provide the instant gratification that shopping for products would. Because, again, advertising is usually for, like, shopping and not for, what's it called? For like causes. Like people don't use advertising for like charities. It's usually considered public service announcements. But the idea that they gamified everything, so this does still link back to everything I've talked about, because in my essay I talked about visuals and how like it's like button like and things like that, but I didn't mention gamification until my conclusion, which is just like an add-on on what I've already said. Does that make sense? Like it's just like a layer on top of what you've already said, but it shouldn't be any new real points. Like you can, so what I've done here is basically considered the zoom out conclusion. So you want to look past what the content is into the genre. So you talk about how the genre is good is a good thing for it. Does that make sense, Aki? I think that's, yeah. Okay. So before I go into text types, do we need to mention? No. If you can, it works. If you don't want to, that's fine too. Like, it doesn't have to be a full thing. It's literally like it can just be one line and be like, yeah, the advertising genre is really good because it does this, and this, and it adds to the purpose. Like, that's how I would do it. Do I prefer textual or visual? Personally, I used to say visual, but actually no, probably visual still. Yeah. I think I've done good text. Okay, Lori, you do literature. You don't get a say. All you do is textual. Um, there is a reason why you chose lit. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I know I've done good like textual analysis, but I just prefer visual because it's easier to talk about like the interplay of visual and text, which is like a really common like guiding question, you know? What do I have to say about text types? Oh yeah. This is a LangLit specific thing, but these are some common text slash image paper one types. So advertisements, comics, cartoons, articles, magazines. These are the ones that will have a text and an image. Something I want to really, really emphasize because it's like it will score you more points is the emphasis of synthesis. So when you have both textual and visual techniques, I would usually pair one textual technique with one visual technique and talk about it together in one paragraph. What that does is shows that you are actively looking at the text as a whole and not just this, and this. That is also something to be said about organizing your essay as a whole. I would rather you don't just list like the devices. You also don't want to go just like analyze it frame by frame. So for example, if there's like a comic strip, you don't want to just go, okay, frame 1 they do this, frame 2 they do this, frame 3 they do. No one wants to hear that. They want to understand that you can look at the text as a whole and see what the author is doing throughout rather than just specifically in each single section of it. Does that make sense? Okay, we're gonna talk about device detecting. Okay, so this is a fun thing to do. Um, if people have been to my sessions before, like if they're the repeat students, they probably seen this before. But try and do like point out devices. We don't need like or any observations that you see, any implications that you see. I'm gonna give it 5 minutes, and I'm gonna drink water while I do that. Lori, anyway, for you, this one doesn't really like because this is a very visual text, so it wouldn't work for you. I can give you one though. Hold on, let me find it. I've done one. I'm pretty sure that's textual. I did like a poem one once upon a time, but I have to find it. Or I can just give you like a small little section of a play that I've done. Me trying to analyze Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Let me just. Oh my god. Like, I'm just looking through my notes, and oh my days, the amount of just yap I've done in my notes for a poem. Look at this. Like, again, this is off topic, guys, but like, look at that. I don't know how I understood anything on that page, but that's fun. Yeah, but I'm not a lit student. Like, I did not need to be doing all that. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna read what people have said. Personalized names appealing to audience's sense of community, yes. Different various languages, calling parents, friends, family, yes. Expands their customer base, nice. Inclusive, allows the authors to get to the audience easier, nice. Good. Simplistic coloring and structure, emphasis on the product, that's nice. Coke is in bright red and different font, highlights and branding, high contrast with backgrounds, so visual vectors, that's good. The vector formed by the Coke bottles, with the largest being friends and family, which are more generalized to represent how many people you can share a Coke with. Yes, that's very good. Lining up to do cheers with the other bottles, never ending amount of people you can share a Coke with. Yes, nice. Coca-Cola logo in the top right, reminiscent of the sun, creates an association between Coca-Cola and the sun, symbol of life, energy, warmth. That's really good. That's a really like wider way to look at it. I like that. Already has a strong brand purposes, minimalizing emphasis on how good the product is, more on the emotional aspect, connects with the audience. Yes, I like that. Something to also consider that no one has said yet, I don't know if people will say after, layout is a really big thing. The friends and family is not centered necessarily, it's cascading. So your eye follows like a left to right, like left bottom to right top, like eye line essentially, because it basically leads to the Coca-Cola branding on the top right. Yes. Coke splash particles reminiscent of confetti and party, happiness, cheerfulness, celebratory, semantic field. Yes, that's good. Specific choice of simplistic font for everything sounds Coke, drawing visual attention. Yes, that's good. I'm gonna look at what Lauria said. Line 3. Enjambment, Caesura gives a moment of pause. Let's reflect on the moment of atmosphere, establishes a moment of peace. Yes, good. Good job. Good job. Okay. But yeah, everything you guys said is really, really good. So that honestly, 7 students, everyone. That's good. Ellipsis with after with encourages the reader to immediately try to fill the sentence for who they can share a Coke with. Thought encouraging. Yes, very good. Honestly, you're all getting 7s. I don't know why I'm here. This is great. How do I steal this whole chat? Yeah. Hey, that's actually better than what I got offered last year. Not last year, last session. My brain was being stolen by people apparently during M25 exam season. Which was fun. People were just like, "Can I just have your brain?" And I'm like, "Oh, no." It was my exam season as well, but I'm at uni. Anyway. Okay, I'm gonna move forward. Some exemplars of like stuff. I'm just gonna put this at the end. And then time for question and answers. I'm gonna do 10 minutes of questions and answers, and then we can do paper 2. Or 5 minutes, depends on how many questions there are. Any and all paper 1 questions, I am happy to respond. Lori, what are you doing for uni? Psychology. That's cool. That's so fair. Valid. Yeah. Why was your what was my combination? I did uh English HL, Math HL, Bio HL, Chem SL, French SL, and Geo SL. It's a very, very random combination. Um but yes. Oh, there was a question that I missed. Hold on. What techniques are usually common in comics, other than the usual color, shape, etc.? Something that's really, really underwritten about in comics, but I think that everyone should talk about, is transitions. So you want to talk about the transitions and the gutters between panels. Please, 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 please talk about transitions and gutters and splashes and paneling and structure and layout, because that is like, gutter is basically the space between two panels. And I ended up doing law at uni from a med student combo. Yes, 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 I did. Um, how do you talk about transition, gutter, and splash panels? What's a good way for me to explain that? So, for example, there is a comic strip here. So this is a square panel. This is an open panel. This is also a square panel, and this is also a square panel. Now, the reason this is an open panel is because he's like dreaming big. Like he's like, I want a high paying job when I get out of here. I want opportunity. So he's trying to break out of the school mold. But then when he's shut back down and he's back in school life, it closes back in. That's a good way to example it. That's a good way to look at it. Oh my god. Paragraph. Sorry, wall of text really just shocked me for a second. Usually my structure for P1 is I use one textual elements paragraph, a visual elements paragraph, and a structural elements paragraph. Would be something good to stick with. I think what that does is like splits your focus into 3 different paragraphs, which is not a bad approach. I would just say it's always better to synthesize. So if, like, for example, they're trying to make one purpose, so for example, in a case like an advertisement, the purpose is to sell products. However, there are smaller purposes within that. So the first smaller purpose would be to gamify, to encourage that. And then how does gamification work? What contributes to gamification? So you're talking about both visual, textual, and structural elements at the same time, instead of like you're doing individual gamification and like gamification, I'm saying individual ones. Does that make sense? Like, it's not a bad structure, generally. If you can do it well, I think that's still a good score. I would just say it's... Sorry, I just like talking about gamification a lot because I've just been discussing that with a bunch of people recently. But I just meant, like, it makes it so that for every paragraph, you're talking about visual, textual, and structural techniques at the same time. Yes, gamification has to come back to the main purpose of selling the product. Yes. That's just a good way to organize it. What's gamification? So gamification is essentially a marketing tactic where it's more so a digital marketing tactic, but it's essentially where you gamify, or like you make it so that the audience has something to like interact with the piece of text that there is. It increases consumer engagement. So when you have an advertisement that has, for example, like buttons and like or like it looks like a game of some kind. Let me show you an example. Try and find it. See, like this is kind of gamification. So this is from a specific advertisement. This is a small section of a bigger advertisement. But this is kind of gamification. So it's telling, like, it's a call to action, but it's also like more modern than just a call to action. It's not telling you to just do one thing. It's telling you to do several things, and it's like a game. It feels like a game. Like it's a quest and you have to do different missions, that kind of thing. Increased total revenue, firms reinvest into economy. Bro is connecting it back to econs. Anyway, yeah. Any questions, guys? Any more questions before we go on to paper 2 and I get to yap for another hour? Okay. Paper 2. Alright. I'm gonna do a little 3-minute break so I can drink water. And then we will come back to this. Okay. Now we're gonna talk about paper 2. I'm gonna yap about paper 2, which is fun. And this is more fun for the lit people because it's the same thing for them as well. Literally does not matter who you are. Everyone can listen to my yap about paper 2. Okay. Again, we're going to go through general reminders, and I'm going to talk about outlining again, even though I've already done that, but I'm going to do that again. And then I'm going to talk about text types, which is very useful for lit paper 1 as well, as paper 2. And then we're going to talk about themes and taking notes. And we're going to talk about questions. We're not going to talk about questions. I'm going to ask if you have any questions. So, both HL/SL students or LangLit and Lit students, everyone gets an hour and 45 minutes to write paper 2s based on 1 out of 4 prompts. You get 4 prompts every time. And again, like all exams, you will get 5 minutes at the beginning to read your text. Yeah. So, reminders. First thing, paper 2 is a compare and contrast essay. It's not just a compare essay, it's not just a contrast essay, it is comparing and contrasting at the same time. You want to both identify the similarities and talk about the differences. Please don't just talk about one. Please, I'm begging you. If you take nothing away from what I've yapped, please take this away. You need to talk about both the similarities and the differences. Please don't talk about one. Please. Like, please, I'm begging you. If you go into a paper 2 and talk about only one, I will have failed. Please. Thanks. Yes, comparing means similarities and contrast means differences. Again, peel. I'm not going to explain again. Do peel. And then this is another point of contention. Specific quotes are not necessary to memorize. If you can, lovely. But you don't have to. And I say this every time, and every time there's someone in the chat that's like, oh my god, but my teacher told me that I have to, otherwise I'm going to fail. Okay. Again, if you can, yes, it does add to your thing, but it doesn't remove anything from it if you don't have quotes. Like, you won't lose marks as long as you can still talk about the text. If you can pinpoint certain points of the text, then you can still score marks, guys. Like, I hate people who are like, as long as, yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be, okay, so essentially, you don't have to specifically remember word by word quotes. You don't need to remember like long-winded quotes that are like paragraphs. If you remember like a certain word usage. So like, for example, I always say pointy reckoning. Like from The Crucible. Like that is such a short quote, but I remember that because I talked about it in my thing, because that was a pivotal point. Like, that says a lot. So like, you can have, okay, also Lori, correlation is not causation. Correlation is not causation. Oh, no, wait, you're saying it in a positive way. I'm dumb. It's out of 30. I forgot. Yeah. Like, you can have as little quotes as you want, but as long as you analyze it well, as long as you still have, like, again, you have to talk about the story, right? You have to talk about what it is you're discussing, but you don't need to know, like, exact specific quotes. As long as you know your text really well, like, you know the little, like, intricate details, in the sense that, like, you know that there are these many characters at this point. Like, there's, like, positioning, thematic things, scenes, point of view, everything like that. Like, you don't need to have every single quote memorized. You don't need to memorize the entire freaking play or the entire freaking poem. Like, you don't need very specific quotes. I've had arguments with people about this, but please, please, please remember that, like, yes, if you can remember, amazing, great for you, but not everyone can, and that's fine too. As long as you can describe what's going on, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Yes, you can send your paper too, or whatever. I can send my exemplars after as well. Yeah. Okay. Either here or English LangLit channel or English Lit channel, either or, both, whatever you feel comfortable doing. And again, like I said already before, in paper 1, make sure you provide adequate evidence. Now, people are usually like, wait, those are really random, like, those are very opposite points. I'm saying you don't need quotes and you still need more evidence. Yes, you need evidence, but that evidence does not have to be specifically quotes. It can just be details that you know from the work. Like, you don't, again, it does not have to be specific quotes. Lovely. Before I go into outlining, I'm gonna see if I can find a paper 2 example that I've done that did well. Ooh, my best one was a 26. I think I can send that one if people want to see what it is. I don't know what I talked about though. Let me check what I talked about first. Ooh, this was discuss how 2 works you have studied present concepts of good and bad, not as absolute notions, but as a matter of individual perception. I really, really like this. I really, really like this question. But let me see. I dealt with doubt and the crucible. Can you link that to narrative perspectives? Yes, you can. But yes. Yes, for sure. Like you can put anything you want in there. Okay, I'll send my paper 2 at the end, which was a 26, I think. I need to make sure it has no identifying information. So I will do that at the end of the session. Okay. Again, outlining. This is just a reiteration of what I've already said. Literally, like, it's basically what I've already said for paper 1. The only difference for paper 2 is that it's a lot easier to plan because it's literally out of your own head. It's just out of your own head. But yes. Gatsby, Death of a Salesman, God of Carnage, Macbeth, and Human Acts. That's a very good selection. So what did we do? I don't even remember anymore. We did The Crucible, Doubt, which are both plays. We did Frankenstein, we did The Bloody Chamber, and we did Sylvia Plath poems. 23 out of 25? How do you grade out of 25? The new syllabus is out of 20. Oh, it's... Wait, how is it 25? What's the split? Oh, so it's 5, 10, 5, 5? You're so weird. Yeah, 26 for 2026. Yes, okay. So there are prose. This is just a lot of yap, but prose, poetry, and drama. Do people want me to go through this? This is just a lot of like literature yap. But yes. That's what happens though, unfortunately. But yes, do people want me to yap through text types, or are people like done? Which is also fair, because I've just been yapping for an hour and a half at this point. If not, we can also just do a... Hold on. This is just... So... A-okay, like, it's okay, like, I'm A-okay. Like, I don't know how to explain. It's just like a figure of speech. Not area of knowledge. Ah, the D-okay. That's crazy. Yeah. I think it's easier if I just answer questions. Also, if people need me to read something they've written and give feedback, I can probably do that if verbally. Detail with literary devices versus literary features. I should think of what the differences are myself. Okay, basically the difference between literary devices and literary features are essentially the differences between devices and conventions. So conventions or literary features are like things that are present in every, like, in specific genre. There's genre specific conventions. So for example, let's see, what's a good... In graphic analysis, there's always going to be a gutter. Like that is convention. There's like how you can identify what type of work it is. For plays, there's dialogues, there's stage directions. There is in poem, there's like verses and lines and things like that. In graphic analysis, there's gutters, there's paneling, there's like, those are all conventions. Literary devices themselves are more of the stuff that you analyze. So it's color, it's use of metaphor, it's anaphora, repetition, what else? Rhythm, rhyme, like all of those are like specific devices. Not that I know of, because most devices are really common. I think it's better to do common devices and analyze them really well, than do like niche devices. Although I don't know if there are any niche devices specifically, so I can't really answer that. Which scene is that? You're gonna have to explain. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But yes, I can give you Hill's crash out. There's a lot of crash outs. But if you can, yeah, if you can give me his monologue, then I can give you my take on it. But yes, I will start recording now, and I will post this recording.